What if the biggest trauma of your life doesn't have a name, but is the silence you heard when you needed comfort the most? It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a slap. It was the absence, the look that never came, the hug that never happened, the question no one asked. Are you okay? You felt it and pretended you didn't, because no one noticed, because no one wanted to listen. Maybe you learned too early that feeling was wrong. And ever since, you've been living in a world where silence weighs more than any word. Growing up without emotional support is like trying to learn how to swim in the dark. You flail, you swallow water, you sink and resurface, you sink again, and when you finally manage to float, the fear is still there, stuck to your chest. The fear of sinking, alone all over again. Maybe no one ever taught you what to do with what you were feeling. Maybe from a young age, all you ever heard was, "Stop being dramatic. You're strong. You'll get over it." There are people with way bigger problems, so you stop trying to explain, because explaining hurt more than staying silent, because no one listened, or worse, no one believed you. You grew up carrying the weight of emotions that never had room to breathe, carrying a silent, lonely pain, often invisible even to yourself. And maybe only now you're starting to realize what you went through wasn't just being sensitive. It was a kind of abandonment, silent, hard to name, but real. Today, in this video, we're going to explore the 3 quiet phases of this kind of trauma. 3 stages many people go through, from childhood to adulthood, without even realizing. They're trapped in a cycle, and together we'll also start to uncover how to begin healing from it. If at any point you ever felt invisible to the ones who should have been there for you, drop a comment below. I've felt that. Sometimes, naming the pain is the first step toward finally hearing it. In childhood, everything we feel comes pure. It comes without filters, without defense, without shame. Fear is just fear. Sadness is simply sadness. Love is whole. Pain is too. But what happens when these emotions have no place to exist? You cry, and someone says, "Hold that tear back, boy. Here comes the drama again." You ask for comfort with your eyes, but get an impatient, distant look in return. You want to be seen, but hear that you're just being spoiled. And so, you start doubting yourself. Am I overreacting? Is what I feel wrong? Little by little, the child learns a lesson they should never have been taught. Feeling too much pushes people away. That your emotions were inconvenient, excessive, unnecessary. The child realizes that to be accepted, they have to be less sensitive, less needy, less honest. And before they know it, they're already wearing armor, not by choice, but by survival. Maybe that child was you, curling up to fit in the tight space of a home where emotions were seen as weakness, where silence felt safer than speaking out. And even surrounded by people, you felt alone. It wasn't a lack of food, clothes, or toys. It was the absence of listening, of comfort, of someone looking into your eyes and saying, "It's okay to feel this. I'm here." But that never came, and the child you were had to grow up too soon. Learn to smile when you didn't want to. Distract yourself so you wouldn't feel. Stay quiet so you wouldn't bother anyone. This doesn't leave visible scars, but it builds a void, a kind of hole that you start trying to fill with anything. Good grades, good manners, silence, perfection. You try to be what pleases others, because you learned early on that being yourself wasn't enough. And when this pain repeats, day after day, without ever being acknowledged, it doesn't disappear. It settles in, stays quiet, but it influences everything. How you see yourself, how you love, how you feel fear. Learning that your feelings don't matter is a lesson that hurts for a lifetime. And the cruelest part is that often this pain is disguised as discipline, strict upbringing, good intentions. But a child doesn't understand rationalizations. They only feel. Do you remember the first time you felt alone, even when surrounded by people? If you've ever been through this at any point in your life, comment below. I've been there. Your silence matters, and maybe now, finally, it's starting to be heard. When you're not heard as a child, you learn to survive in silence. But it's not just silence, it's a performance. You learn to look strong, to put on armor made of competence, of independence, of self-reliance. Even when, inside, you're falling apart. You learned not to bother anyone, to fix everything on your own, to manage by yourself. Because deep down, you believed that if you showed weakness, if you said, "I need help," no one would come. Or worse, they would come, but with judgment. So it was safer to pretend. Pretend everything was fine. Pretend you were strong, that you had already overcome it. Those who aren't heard, learn to be strong. Or at least, to seem strong. And so the mask is born, the mask of the mature one, the too responsible for their age, the always available, never fragile. You became the one who listens to everyone, but doesn't know how to ask to be heard, the one who helps, but doesn't know how to be helped. And day by day, this mask sticks more firmly to your face, until you start to believe in it yourself. But inside, it still hurts. If I show what I feel, they'll think I'm weak. If I need help, no one will stay. If I break down, I'll lose the little I have. You smile, but don't feel joy. You achieve things, but don't feel whole. You're surrounded by people, but feel isolated. Because the truth is, the strength you show hides a pain no one has seen. And the worst part is when this mask starts to be admired. People praise you. Wow, you're so strong. So mature, so independent. And you smile, but inside, you scream. Because no one sees the effort it takes to keep up this facade. No one realizes you didn't want to be strong all the time. You just wished you had someone. Back then, who said, "You don't have to carry everything alone." But that never came. So you survived. The best way you could. This mask you learned to wear for protection slowly also stopped you from connecting with others and with yourself. And that's why over time it starts to weigh you down. There comes a point when your body starts to speak what your soul has held in for too long. You no longer feel motivation, no anger, no sadness, no joy, just emptiness. And everything begins to feel heavy. Replying to messages, smiling, working, getting up. As if life had become a task to complete, without presence, without meaning. This is what they call emotional fatigue. But the name doesn't do justice to the depth of what you're feeling. Because it's not just tiredness. It's the result of years of having to be strong, out of necessity. Years of accumulating small pains, neglect, and silences. Years without space to breathe. And when it all spills over, it often shows up as a crisis. Burnout, extreme anxiety, relationships falling apart, fear of abandonment, even when no one has left. Cruel self-demands, feeling like you don't belong, even with those you love. You sense something is wrong, but you're not exactly sure what. All you know is that you're tired, deeply tired, of fighting, of holding up this strong version of yourself, of pretending everything is fine when everything inside you is begging for a break. Sometimes you wonder, is there something wrong with me? But the truth is something else. What you have is an old pain, an accumulation of everything you couldn't say, of everything you swallowed to be accepted, of every moment you needed support and had to manage alone. One day, the pain you held in for too long overflows. But as hard as it may seem, there is a place where everything can start to change. Recognition. Recognizing that this pain exists, that it's real, that it doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. Because when we start naming what we feel, the pain loses some of its power. It stops being a monster in the dark and begins to be a part of your story that needs to be heard. And maybe, for the first time, you're ready to listen. Carl Jung said, "What you resist persists, what you accept transforms." This sentence seems simple, but it carries a profound truth. Throughout your life, you may have resisted the pain, tried to hide it, ignored it, pretended it wasn't there. But what isn't welcomed doesn't disappear. It just changes form. It becomes tension in your body. It becomes fear in your emotions. It becomes exhaustion, sadness, self-sabotage. Carl Jung, one of the greatest names in deep psychology, reminds us that what we deny traps us, but what we accept, with courage and kindness, can finally find a path to healing. Recognizing pain isn't giving into it. It's making room for it to transform. It's allowing that inner child, who was once silenced, to finally begin to be heard. You didn't have to be strong all the time. No one should have to grow up swallowing their own tears, masking their needs, hiding their fears as if they were flaws. But you did what you knew how to do, what you needed to do to keep going. And that is worthy. It's brave. It's deeply human. But now, maybe it's time to stop fighting alone. Because that child you once were still lives inside you. They never left. They just fell silent. And maybe now, all they're asking for is one thing: for someone to listen. Listening to that child isn't reliving the pain. It's saying with maturity and tenderness, "I see you now. I'm here." That pain you carry is not weakness. It's the mark of a story that never had the comfort it deserved. But you survived. And that alone is immense. Now it's time to live, no longer with armor, but with truth, with care, with love. Because you deserve more than just survival. You deserve peace, presence, belonging, and it starts here, in the silence where finally you listen to yourself. Growing up without emotional support leaves marks, invisible marks, but deep, that shape how you love, feel, and live. But recognizing this with courage and kindness is, in itself, an act of healing. Maybe you never had someone who truly listened to you, but now you can be that presence for yourself, little by little, at your own pace. So I want to invite you not to run away from this moment. Leave a comment below. Share what you're feeling right now. For those carrying this pain in silence, hearing your words can make all the difference. Because we are not alone on this journey. And if you want to keep walking this path of self-discovery and rebuilding, subscribe to the channel. We're just getting started.